Welcome back to Analytical Media. We are a consortium of therapists, researchers, and well-published authors of peer-reviewed documents. Today we have another question, and the question is it just an anger problem? I will read you now the letter that accompanies the question. Since a child, my mother has accused me of having anger issues. Though I've always felt that my anger behavior as a child was a defense mechanism and possibly the result of anxiety. It is interesting to see defense mechanisms used in a neo-Freudian way, a new way. Certainly, anger was not a defense mechanism according to Freud. Today, his original short list of defense mechanisms has been expanded to 30 or 31, depending where you look. And it's interesting to me because the people that have added these new defense mechanisms, I can almost guarantee you, are virtually unknown and will never, their reputations will never survive their death. We're still talking about Freud, who was active before the turn of the 19th century. So, I don't know how one might phrase this, but it's sort of nouveau psychology. Some would say pop psychology that's gone here. It certainly hasn't withstood the test of time. And the people who've generated these new theories and thoughts do not have the credibility that Freud or Jung did, or any of the great names for that matter, and likely will not. These people, their reputations will likely not withstand the test of time. So, I am reluctant to agree that this could be anger as a defense mechanism because I don't believe that anger is a defense mechanism. I can understand why people say it, but I don't want to stray too far from the man who invented them, created them, or at least the concept of them, Sigmund Freud. I think if he wanted 31, he would have added 15 or 20 more. I don't think it's that he didn't think of it. I think he thought of everything that fit the category of defense mechanism. So I am rejecting that. There's another reference to pop psychology here I will come to in a bit. Due to an intense fallout with my father in 2015, I entered a black hole of what I assume was depression. We eventually reconciled so that I could move back home. I then spent the last few years trying to put everything into perspective, understanding the dark hole I was trapped in, trying to become human again for the sake of those around me. Now, what I don't like about this is that she said she entered a black hole of what she is assuming was depression. But what I don't like about it was she has attributed the cause of this, to an intense fallout with her father in 2015. When people come into counseling or therapy and give you a choice between, do I have A, B, or C? I dislike that because maybe it's not A, B, or C. It might be D or E, or F or G, or A prime to the 10th number. I don't know, but it's presumptuous of someone to assume they need help but have limited the choices to A, B, or C. The cause, attributed the cause to A, B, or C. And oftentimes that is suggestive of the problem itself. That they think they know what's caused this, they've come this far. If they narrowed it down to A, B, or C, you'd think they could narrow it down to A or B or C. They need to find out at that point that there's much more to this than they recognize. Well, I say they need to, not for my sake, They need to for their sake. They need to be open to whatever information is uncovered in the therapy process. They cannot be closed-minded in any way. And she said her angry behavior as a child was a defense mechanism and possibly the result of anxiety. She did it again. She narrowed it down again. She's including now, she knows it's a defense mechanism, which of course is wrong, and saying, I'm not sure, but it could be anxiety. Around November last year, I felt like I was finally on the right track, but it was very short-lived. These days, I'm fine 1 minute, and the next, a wave of emotion hits me. Sometimes tears start to fill my eyes, and I take a moment to breathe and pull myself towards myself. Even with persons who are bipolar, we're not looking at mood changes this quick, minute by minute. These days I'm fine 1 minute and the next a wave of emotion hits me. If I were speaking to her as I would be in a therapy setting, I would be asking her many questions, many, many more than she has alluded to in this correspondence. At other times, I become extremely irritable. My muscles immediately ache with tension. I start to feel impulsive, and it's as though my touch with reality starts to slip away. I do manage to step myself back into a somewhat rational level, but it seems that the more time it happens, the worse it gets, and the harder it is for me to snap myself back out of it. What could cause someone who's going about their day like normal, perhaps just making a cup of coffee, to then, within a matter of seconds, want to throw the mug across the room or continually push the fridge into the wall over and over again? Could I be using anger to deflect my true emotions? Maybe I have PTSD that is finally starting to surface. But why would it present as anger? Is this still my method to protect myself? Or do I just have an anger problem? And she says, maybe I have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which that diagnosis is given out very freely. Some would say it's the diagnosis du jour. It's not the soup of the day, but it's the diagnosis of the day. And everybody that comes into that restaurant during that period of time, they're going to get that soup because that's the only soup they have. It's the one they're pushing. And could that be true of PTSD? It seems to be true. There seem to be things that diagnoses seem to occur with popularity. And today, it seems to us here at Analytical Media today, it seems that PTSD is the modern replacement for ADHD. We don't see 20 years ago, ADHD was hot. It was the diagnosis du jour for sure. Or so it seemed. Today, it's PTSD. Seems to be the culprit behind most mental problems, according to diagnoses, much of which are given by less than fully knowledgeable sources. Sources who give this diagnosis who would not be allowed to do so for the court systems. They would not be considered experts in the court system and thus would not be able to testify on the subject of mental health. So I just point that out to you. There's so much more we need to know. We need to know all these examples that she lists. We need to know, we need to show them fully. We need to know what the falling out was with her father, why she thinks it put her in a deep hole. She didn't say depression. She went to a dark place. And we don't know what other... She alludes to pushing the refrigerator into the wall over and over again and throwing her coffee mug across the room. it would seem common for people to throw a coffee mug. And so that might be an example, but when somebody's pushing the refrigerator into the wall over and over again, that's very unusual. I've never heard of that before, which would make me think she has experience in this way of expressing her anger. So I don't believe she could be diagnosed from this information. There's not much we can glean from this information. We need to find out what happens to her. Is she being reinforced for her angry behavior? Like the child that is taken into the grocery store who finds some candy that he wants to eat while the mother is shopping. The child wants something, perhaps sitting in the shopping cart, or the mother holds on to the child as they walk through the store, and then the child wants something, the child is told no, and then the child becomes angry and emotional and cries and stomps his feet, won't listen to the mother, may tell the mother he hates her, may tell the mother he hopes she dies, might try to kick the mother. Now, what is the reaction? Anywhere along this escalating chain of emotion coming from the child, what is the mother's reaction? What should it be? Well, I'll tell you what it shouldn't be. Should not be this. She should not say, okay, sit down, be quiet, and I'll give you that candy. Whereupon a child will immediately quiet down and take the candy offered or the candy put into the cart. That is reinforcing that behavior. Something positive comes after this negative behavior. Did that happen to her as a child? When she got angry, did her mother punish her or reward her? Her father punish her or reward her? And don't forget, we can have punishment, we can have reinforcement, and we can have negative reinforcement. Keeping it the most simple here, could she have been reinforced? And let me just say this, positive reinforcement means something is added to the situation. Like the child performs a behavior and he receives a cookie. So the child hits his little brother and you give him a cookie. Well, that's going to increase the behavior of him hitting his brother. We could also have negative reinforcement, which is not punishment. That's why I stopped to point this out. Oftentimes, people misuse that. Negative is an adjective, reinforcement is the noun. So what we're saying here is that it is reinforcement, and that which increases behavior. If a reinforcer follows a behavior, that behavior will increase in the future. Basic tenet of behaviorism. Doesn't matter if that behavior is positive reinforcement, which is the addition of something, or negative reinforcement, which is the removal of something. Both are reinforcers, both will increase the behavior. If a punisher or punishment follows a behavior, that behavior will decrease in the future. So we need to look at that, at the actual cause of her acting out by exploring her childhood in the past. Once we make that determinant, which will rule out other things like brain tumors, quite seriously, physical causes, once that's ruled out, then we are no longer concerned with the cause, but we now become concerned with the treatment. How do we improve her condition? But there's way too little information presented here for us possibly to even take a guess at what could be the cause. Though if you force me to, and I guess I kind of already did, suggest that it could be a learned behavior. Her behavior, that would be a hunch, something to explore. It could be the butler in the study with the candlestick, the old game Clue. And it could be. And it could be the mother or the father reinforcing this behavior, this angry, acting out, emotional behavior as a child. Okay, I hope you have benefited from this to some degree. If you did, certainly subscribe. It helps the channel, it helps the algorithm, it helps us spread the message to other people. This is Analytical Media. We wish you well. We hope everything's going well. We hope we are benefiting you in some way. We've been a positive thing in your life. And if so, we have accomplished our goal. Having said that, please look for our next video and take care.